exit the aircraft for any reason. If we have to put it down somewhere and we're on fire, I'd probably prefer you were away. You know, I'll take the brunt. Get the seatbelt off, go to the front of the aircraft. Don't go to the back.
Okay.
That tail rotor, it kills people. And we don't have to worry about doors because we don't have them on. And if you feel sick or anything like that, let me know. We'll spin around, come back. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. Usually, we got a lot of visibility. Yeah. You know, a ton. So it's going to be pretty cool. We'll do some good banks.
Can I shove my phone in this pocket here? Or?
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
Is that?
Yeah,
because I don't have any real secure pockets. Probably my key too.
I already did a pre-flight, so I'll just kind of give you a little walk around.
It's all good.
Okay, so make sure fuel cap's on. We got some warning lights. So since you're going to be doing this for a living at some point, right? So we've got a couple different warning lights we got in here. Main rotor temperature. So this is our gearbox right here, right? We got our engine down below, obviously. This is our gearbox where everything happens. So there's oil in there. There's our oil right here. We need oil in there, obviously, to keep everything cool and to keep everything running smoothly. If we were to lose oil, the temperature would increase in there dramatically. So we would get a temperature light. Good indication of low oil. We also have a chip light, right? So if metal starts coming apart in there, one little bit of metal running into another little bit of metal, especially chips, are going to cause more chips, right? So there's a magnetic, there's this little magnet in there that's got like basically a voltage coming across it. As it collects little pieces of metal, the ohms will increase, right? The resistance will increase, it will decrease that voltage, and it'll set off the light, right? So if we get chips, we'll get a light. Same thing with the tail rotor. We got a tail rotor chip light, and we've also got a low fuel light. It takes a few seconds to come on because if we're at, say we've got this much gas in there, the sensor's right here. If it's sloshing around in there because we're doing whatever, we don't want it to trip off the light. So it takes a few seconds, so it has to average out below that. If we see that, we're probably going to put it down because it's not an indication of how much gas is in there. It's just saying there's not very much. It's our main drive shaft. A couple of things in here. Look from this angle down in here, you can see that X shape right there. On the drive shaft itself, are called yoke flanges. I don't know why they're called yoke flanges. It's just a flange right here. And then right here, in between those yoke flanges, is the X plate, and that's the flex coupling. That actually does make sense because that flexes in flight. As we're moving around and everything like that, it absorbs vibration. We have another one right here. So we've got a flex coupling in front of the drive belts. We've got an upper sheave, lower sheave down there. Lower sheave is connected to the flywheel. We have a clutch right here. This clutch disengages this system, right? So by disengaging the system, we can start up the engine without having the drag of the blades on the engine. Makes it real easy. Then we flip on the clutch, this tensions and tightens, moves it up a little bit, and then the belts get tension, and then everything's running super happy. So we check the belts. We've got a sprag clutch in the middle of this sheave, and basically it's like a free wheel, right? So like you're pedaling your bike, you're pedaling, you stop pedaling, the wheel's still spinning, right? Same concept, right? So if we lose engine, the wheel keeps spinning. Stuff. We got our spark plugs right here. Got a magneto pack over here. Magneto is it's like a rotor on a carbureted engine, like an old school engine. It spins with the engine. So we can lose complete electrical power, the battery can fall off, the alternator can fall off, and we're not going to lose spark to the engine. So we don't need electrical power to run the engine. All we need is the engine spinning. It creates its own spark. Fuel lines, or I'm sorry, oil lines right here. Oil cooler door. So we got all this sheet metal on here because this is called a squirrel cage fan blower. And what it does, it spins off the flywheel. Right here, there's a big old nut right there. Just make sure this is lined up. If this wasn't lined up with these marks right here,
yeah,
then we could probably say the engine got oversped. But it blows air over the cylinders. It's an air-cooled engine. Keeps it simple. But being air-cooled, it expands and contracts. So that means we lose oil here and there. Let's see, what else? There's our tail cone. So we've got a tail rotor back there that's pushing thrust this way, or it's pushing thrust that way, but it's lifting that way. So there's 2 bolts over here, there's 3 bolts on the other side. There's our tail rotor control. Anytime you see bell cranks and pulleys, you want to make sure they rotate just a little bit, but there's no play up or down or lateral or vertical, anything like that. There's another one over there. Monocoque tail cone, these are all permanent rivets. If one's missing, that's a big deal. These are inspection plates. These are our comm antennas. Strobe light, everything's LED now, thank God. Those other ones burn out like crazy. Stinger, anytime you have a stinger on an aircraft, feel underneath it. If there's any paint missing or roughness on there, somebody tag the stinger on the ground. Let's see here, bolts holding everything on. Oil, so to make sure there's oil in there, and I see some, so that's good. Tail rotor control, bell crank and pulleys. These are pitch links, so anytime you see a pitch link, now sometimes these wiggle a little bit like that. Yeah. That's no big deal. So what I'll do, but in order to see if this is wiggling, pull down on one, test the other one, pull down on the other one, test the other one. Again, we want rotation. We don't want any play up or down or side to side. It means one of the bearings in there are bad. Some safety stuff. We've got these little washers on these right here. So this washer, if this bearing inside there blew out and that went loose, that washer is going to help to keep it on. All right, same thing. You got bearing washers over here, here. Tail rotor control. So as we change the pitch, we increase the angle of attack, thus increasing the thrust. Cool thing about these, this is called the delta hinge. So in addition to making it easier to attach this thing, it's sideways like that. You can see it kind of goes like that. Yep. Now you hear about these things in aerodynamics. Depending on how much you've read into it, we have an issue called dissymmetry of lift. So we've got relative wind. We've got wind coming over from just the wind going on, right? So you can imagine as our blades are turning like this, that blade over there, the advancing blade, is meeting the wind, right? So that would be, if we have 10 knots of wind and that blade's going 10 knots, that means it has effectively 20 knots of wind coming over it. Well, this retreating one is going backwards. So if that guy's going 10 knots and we have 10 knots of wind coming back, the wind going over that is effectively 0. Right? Amplify that by, we're doing 100 knots, whatever the case is. It's a big deal. So in order to combat that, what these blades do is they flap. And by flapping, it means we go like this. Right? So as we come into the wind, the blade is going to get more lift from that dissymmetry of lift, right? From that relative wind coming over. And that's an aerodynamic thing. You blow over an airfoil, it's going to get more lift. Well, as that happens, that blade lifts up. Right? As that blade lifts up, part of the aerodynamics is that it will lose angle of attack aerodynamically by moving up into the wind while they're connected together. So as this blade moves up, this blade moves down. Right? So as this blade moves down, aerodynamically it's gaining lift because it's moving down into the wind. You'll learn more about that in much more detail. Just trust me on that. So this delta hinge, what this allows it to do is, see, it twists at an angle, right? Yeah. So you see by this side. Okay. So by twisting at an angle, the delta hinge allows us to change angle of attack as it flaps. So that also helps out. Yeah. In the tail rudder, right? Because we don't want too many moving parts. So it wiggles around. It does this automatically. We don't have to worry about that. So there's a lot of features in this. Once you get into the aerodynamics, that will blow your mind. That are so simple. Yet the guys that invented these things, Sikorsky, way back in the day, like they had to figure all this stuff out. Yeah. They figured out how to hover a vehicle. Then when they took off into forward flight, they had some wind coming over the blades. They couldn't control it. They couldn't figure out why. Trial and error. Yeah. So they had to invent this stuff. So that's our tail rotor. Other side of the engine, we've got an alternator belt. We always make sure that doesn't go much more than 90 degrees. More spark plugs. Make sure the wires are good. Manifold pressure gauge. The way we gauge power in this, when we move the collective up and down, we're changing or you won't be able to get it off again. Oil filter up there, make sure it's good, make sure there's no loose connections, make sure there's nothing dripping, you know, underneath the aircraft. These are air cooled, so there's usually a bit of oil on everything. You see oil coming out everywhere. We take these things off airports, so we always get a lot of grass and everywhere. Make sure the battery's good and linkages look good. Next thing, we check are the blades. So, one hand here,
yep.
One hand here, put your foot there, kind of bolts up, and then you can kind of hold on to a gas cap or something. Look up here. One hand here, come up.
Alright. So you wear one hand here.
There you go. Cool. So this is our main rotor system. You guys are doing engine run out there. So, alright, so we've got pitch links right here. Pitch link jam nuts. So when they do on blades, they track and balance them, right? So they make sure that both blades are spinning through the same piece of sky at the same time when we've got a collective on. And they also balance them to make sure they're not going to wobble. Anytime you're spinning something, you want it to be balanced, right? So that's how they do that. They change this here. They add weights to different sides. In the very tips of them, there's little cones that come off, and they add weight in there to make them all balanced out. We've got pitch links right here. This is going to change our swash plate. So we can see up close. And when we wiggle it around,
Yeah.
big scissor looking guy up in the front. That's our collective scissor. That's what lifts it up and down. We've also got that big bar coming across the middle. So the engine spins the rotor mast, and that bar is attached to the rotor mast, and then it attaches to the upper part of the swash plate. And that spins around the whole rotor, right? If that wasn't there, the whole weight of everything would be spinning on those pitch links right there. So that's not good. So
Yeah.
put that on.
Yeah.
We've also got the nuts going on there. So for the blades, they're on the cotter pins are on opposite sides.
Uh-huh.
So you can see one there, and if you lean way over
Yep.
underneath, you can see one on the other side. And then there's a cotter pin for the main hinge on the top. Pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of
That's it.
a lot of small details.
Yeah. I'm just saying I shouldn't stand up here. I'm standing up here all the time.
Oh, really?
It's a lot easier to explain something
Yeah.
when I'm actually up there pointing it out. So that's that. So this is an endorsement, just saying that you've received SFAR 73 awareness training.
Okay.
We talked about low G pushovers, mass bumping, low rotor RPM, blade stall, and energy management.
Cool.
So that's for you. Put that in your pocket.
Official.
I mean, we need to make a copy of that, so remind me.
Okay, yeah.